Welcome, everyone. This is episode 48, season 3 of the Standing 8 podcast. This episode is being recorded and broadcasted live on Spreaker and our website, thestanding8podcast.com, on this night of Thursday, February 27th of 2020. This episode can also be found later tonight on major podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. I'm Aaron Sorial from Los Angeles. I'm joined by my usual suspects, Courtney Tanner, Michael Gomes, and Tommy Rush Jr. We have a lot of boxing to talk about, including reviewing Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder, the rematch. We'll be reviewing the fight and discussing the major headlines that, birthed from that event. And also we'll giving our quick preview of Mikey Garcia versus Jessie Vargas this Saturday, happening in Texas. So with no further ado, I'm going to give it to Michael Gomes to moderate the rest of the show. How you doing, Michael?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Today. We have a lot to talk about. There's going to be a lot of trash talking, especially among some of the callers in our group, obviously, to a couple of our hosts and panelists. But I got to say, I told you so. So we had a very, very good, or rather, should I say, great boxing fight. But I can't really say it was great because it was the most one-sided, or one of the most one-sided boxing fights I've seen in quite a long time, especially in the heavyweight division. So, Mr. Courtney Tanner and Mr. Tommy Rush, I know you had picked Mr. Bomb Squad to win, but that didn't happen. Did you guys drop down in a fetal position after the fight was done? That's all I want to know from both of you.
No.
I shed a few tears.
But guys, were you surprised? Look, you guys know that I've been saying Tyson Fury, but I've also been saying it could go either way. Were you surprised at the outcome of this fight? Did you think that Deontay was going to take the beating that he took? Because let's be real. Let's call a spade a spade. He took an ass whooping from start to finish, especially from the third round on. He took a brutal beating, and shame on people criticizing Breland for what he did. The reality of the fact is that the ref, Kenny Bayless, could have called the fight even earlier if he wanted to. What were your thoughts? And I'm going to start with you, Courtney. What were your thoughts? Were you surprised? What is your assessment of that fight?
I mean, first of all, who the hell is? I mean, aside from Dave, Wilder's actual trainer, like who the hell is actually criticizing Breland? That was an action that could have very possibly. I think to say saved his life is a little dramatic because of the proximity with which Kenny Bayless was officiating the action. But I think Breland's action definitely preserved Wilder's career. I think personally, I was on the boards and I was on the fight thread, and I was saying around 5 that it was time to wrap that up. So I think Bayless was actually a little slow to jump in there, but I think he was trying to afford Wilder as the champ or as the belt holder every opportunity he could to turn it around. And Wilder, he just couldn't. But Breland, I think that was absolutely the necessary and the right action as Wilder's quarterman, and he's not the head person in that quarter, so that's caused a lot of internal grief as far as Wilder's camp. But I think no matter how it turns out for Breland, whether he still has a place in Wilder's camp or not, I think he did the right thing, and I think that was the absolutely necessary action. And I think the way history goes down, and when cooler heads and passions cool down from this fight, especially with Wilder himself, I think he's going to see what everybody else sees, in that action that Breland took was the absolutely necessary right thing to do in terms of that. Because let's just face it, what Wilder was dealing with was it went from It went from a boxing match. It went from a scenario where he was losing the fight. It went from a scenario where he was taking a beating, and then it just simply devolved into an assault. And I think that's what the world was seeing. So as far as people being critical, I have not seen anybody be critical of Breland. I think unanimously, I've never seen the internet campaign for somebody's job the way they're campaigning for Breland to remain in Wilder's corner. So good stoppage. And I think the tragedy in this all is that, I think there's a lot of tragedy. There's a lot of parallels, but credit to Tyson Fury. Absolute credit to Tyson Fury. I think his win and his accomplishment and the how historical what he did and how he did it is not being taught. I think that deserves first mention when we bring this fight up instead of the pounding that Wilder took. But I mean, I get that. I get that because of the magnitude of it, the stage it was on, and basically just the collective shock of people that Wilder not necessarily lost, but he lost in that fashion. But I think there's not nearly enough credit being assigned to Tyson Fury. When Tyson Fury walked out to the ring or got carried out to the ring, and his introduction was the song, the outfit, the fashion in which he did it. Initially watching, I didn't get it. It just seemed kind of odd, to come out in that fashion for him, particularly the song. And then when he put it all together and they raised his hand, I thought back to it, and I was like, that was the most perfect way Tyson Fury could have come out to the ring to beat Wilder's ass. And to me, that stage, the way he did it, the way he laid the table out, it was borderline sadistic what Fury did to Wilder. But it's a resounding victory. One of the greatest comebacks in sports has been completed. And us getting to witness that was we got to bear witness to history and to a historical moment. So I mean I get a lot more than I can say on it, but I want to. I know we're restricted on time, but I'm gonna give the mic back to Tommy. But I'll definitely weigh in on this a little more later.
Yeah, and to respond to what you said as far as people campaigning to have Breland on. You're right. There is a lot of people, but there are, I'm not going to say just as many people, but there are some obviously internet trolls, a couple of fans that are ride or die fans for Deontay, and nobody in the actual business, in the industry, has said that what he did was wrong. In fact, everybody applauds him.
Mike
said, go ahead. Sorry.
Michael, no, you're good. You're good. But I want to interject this real quick. Anybody who is saying that Breland had no right to do that or shouldn't have done that or should be fired or whatever, nobody who is saying, like, I don't doubt there's people on the internet saying that, but those people who are saying that, they are not really boxing fans. They can't classify themselves as boxing fans. They're basically people who want to see somebody die.
Correct. And there are people that don't understand what the human body goes through in a fight like that. Like Teddy Atlas says, he's always said it. Look, you walk into the ring and you come out less of a person than you were when you were walking in the ring in the beginning. And I truly wholeheartedly believe that. It takes, whether you take a little bit of punishment or a lot of punishment or no punishment, you walk out of that ring less of a human being than when you did when you first walked in. And shame on anybody who's, criticizing Breland for making the decision that Kenny Bayless should have made, in my opinion, probably the round before or 30 seconds earlier in that round. And that's another controversy in itself, where it seemed like Kenny was very hesitant into making a decision that should have been made. That's obviously a decision that is in favor of a boxer's health. And at the end of the day, that's what that's ultimately the ref's obligation and biggest responsibility, is to make sure that they're protecting any boxer in the ring from suffering more damage than they need to. We've seen so many boxers either lose their life right after a fight, or weeks later, or just become lesser of a person a month or two later from the damages suffered in a fight. So they have to be very, very careful, especially in a fight where Deontay is taking a beating for about 4 good rounds. We can argue 5. But anyway, Tommy, you obviously watched the fight. You can bow down to me because I was right again. Tommy, what was your assessment of the fight? Were you shocked? What was your reaction? Like, were you shocked? Was this something that you thought that maybe could occur? Did you think that Tyson was ever going to execute this type of game plan into the rematch?
Man, I can't stand you, Gomes. I can't stand you, sir. Oh boy. So what was I shocked? No, because Tyson Fury is a bad motherfucker, but I didn't expect it to go exactly like that. Damn, that shit was crazy, man. Like it was, absolutely, yes, it was 100% credit to Tyson Fury. And, like Courtney was saying about the beating that Wilder took, it was the beating that Tyson Fury delivered out. He, from start to finish, the theatrics, the mind games, the showmanship, everything that we do know about that man, he pulled all of the cards out in that fight. So the weight difference, that was a lot that got talked about. Which I'm gonna skip around on this real quick. The weight. You mean to tell me that Wilder is in the ring with a dude that's about 40 pounds heavier than him, and he can't carry 40-pound costume? You didn't game plan for 40 extra pounds to be on you, a heavyweight bout? Like, come on, bruh. So he didn't execute the jab at all. He was fighting off his back foot. Fury was coming forward the entire fight. It was a masterful game plan.
He was not fighting at all on his back foot. He was just backing off.
Well, yeah, you're right about that. He was just backing off. He was running with his back foot. He was backpedaling.
but let's give Tyson some credit though. Tyson, right from the inception, as soon as the bell rang, like ding ding, right from the inception. Exactly. I mean, you saw Tyson run up to Deontay and basically set the precedent and set the expectation of what he was going to do. I'm going to let you continue. Go ahead. So continue on.
No, you're right, and it was before. He came, the whole thing, like Courtney said, the music. It seemed like it was something that was throwing everybody off, and that's his game plan. He wants to get in people's heads. He wants you thinking about other things, and he came out and showed everything that he was planning all along, and it was masterful, man. I mean, Wilder had absolutely no answer. He couldn't even pull the right hand. Even with the point deduction, what was that, round 6, I believe, or something. Maybe that was something that was in Bayless's mind, was some of the tactics that were being utilized by Fury in the ring, which, he's a veteran, man. That's what veterans do. Somebody like Bernard Hopkins, like, they're known for being, those shifty veterans that can get in there and pull some good tricks out the bag. And that's what he did. And he completely exposed Wilder, that somebody with that type of ring IQ, that type of mental game plan, that preparation, and that grit that this dude has, that he's shown all of his life, that's what it'll do. And it was a devastating loss. And this one going to be one that we really, really need to see what happens when we see Wilder back in the ring.
And you're right about the excuses. I'm extremely surprised that a guy like Deontay, who's basically willing to die on his shield or on his sword, would come up with all those excuses. And the excuses actually started during the post-fight interview in the ring, where he was already talking about, there was something wrong. Yeah, he was already making those excuses in the ring. And I was actually very surprised that a guy who showed that much heart during that loss, which he did. Like, no one can take any credit away from Deontay as far as how he took the beating. Like, he did not want to go down. He did go down, obviously, those 2 times, but he was willing to sacrifice it all right there and then. Obviously the corner threw in the towel, Greenland threw in the towel, but we can't discredit his heart and soul as far as that. Not that that's like a big thing. At the end of the day, he did lose and he lost in a very big fashion. But it's something that we should talk about as far as his fortitude in itself. As far as the costume, I mean, I've watched a bunch of people talk about it. I just watched Roy Jones on Fight Hype give an interview for about 40 minutes and basically laughing at the fact that was, an excuse. Roy was like, listen, I've played a full entire pickup basketball game before fights. I've put on 30, 40-pound vests before fights. It's never done anything for me. But if you don't train for it, that could be an issue. I mean, Joe Rogan was on his podcast. I mean, it's becoming a little bit of a nuisance around the fight itself. The narrative shouldn't be the excuses. The narrative should be Tyson Fury executed a fantastic game plan. Aaron, you obviously saw the fight too. You had Deontay picked to win before the fight happened. What were your thoughts on the fight? What was your assessment? Were you shocked? Are you still shocked?
I wasn't shocked at Fury winning. I was shocked in the way he did it, because if you guys remember from a couple two podcasts ago, Sean Fitzgerald, he one of our beloved guests on that show, he said there's going to be 2 distinct results, either Tyson Fury by decision or Wilder by knockout, given their history, their styles of fighting, their past records. But as you all know, we got something totally from the blind side of a result. Wow. I mean, Tyson Fury, he had a combination of, he was proportionally heavier than Wilder. On top of that, he was quicker, being the heavier guy, and as we already know this, he's naturally more skilled than Deontay Wilder. So the combination of those 3, that's a deadly combination. It's a deadly combination going against making it an uphill battle for Deontay Wilder. So because of that allowed Tyson Fury to, not fear that right hand, that feared right hand from Wilder. He was able to, mess with his head, punch over his guard, punch around his guard, and just make him, retreat on the back foot, not give him any chance to position himself to plant that right hand and basically seal the win. And that's what I saw that night.
Correct. Great assessment. Another thing I want to point out is, and this, I mean, obviously ring IQ in boxing is a major thing. Tyson Fury's decision to execute the game plan that he displayed on Saturday night was based on round 12, which a while back I mentioned the same thing. In round 12, when Tyson Fury got knocked down, which everybody thought he was never going to get up, we noticed that he got up, he was sluggish for a good 5-6 seconds, and then right after that, he put his foot on the gas pedal. For anybody who doesn't remember, Tyson Fury immediately right after 5 or 6 seconds puts his foot on the gas pedal and is really sticking it to Deontay. He's really coming after Deontay. He's pressuring Deontay. And you notice in that round 12, right, which Deontay had some time to obviously rest after, when he knocked Tyson down, he had some time to rest. But you notice that Deontay is going back, is getting pressured, and you start noticing that it's almost as if he was deteriorating at that moment as a boxer. And I don't know if you guys noticed that, but Tyson Fury, uses that round 12, his performance right after he gets up, basically saying, I found something. I found a blueprint that I think is going to work for me. And that's what he based his execution on, the fact that he was able to back Deontay down and that Deontay was not doing well when he was under pressure. So, Aaron, I'm going to redirect to you really quick because I know you have a comment about the 40-pound costume. Go ahead.
Okay. First, I want to make this clear. I'm going to preface this by being frank. I think the costume thing that's the most absurd. Absurd. I guess I'll call it excuse. I guess Sorry, Deontay. I'm still a fan of yours. But having said that, if Deontay Wilder is self-convinced that was the tangible reason for his performance, and if he's so self-convinced to the point where he's not mentally discouraged and he's ready for it, he's ready for that immediate third fight this summer, then from a fan standpoint, I'm excited. Then I'm from that viewpoint, from that side of it, of the thing, of this whole thing, then I can understand that. And in a sense, the fan in me, I'm pretty excited for Deontay. But putting that aside, I think the excuse I think that costume is it's pretty blatant excuse in my opinion. But if he's self-convinced that's the reason, hey, if that's gonna change his game plan for the better in the third fight, then hopefully as a fan he wins he gets that title back. That's all I got to say about that.
Which is a good point, which we're gonna transition over to what our assessments would be if there is the third fight, because obviously he has 30 days from after the fight to elect for a rematch or for the trilogy, might I say, which I don't know if he has yet. I don't know if that's official. We're hearing talks that AJ versus Fury now might transpire, that Tyson might give Deontay some step-aside money, which that would be smart. And in my personal opinion, I think that Deontay needs time to adjust, and he's not going to be able to adjust in 4 months against Tyson Fury, because I don't think it's so much what Deontay could do in order to beat Tyson. I think it's more, he's going to be more reliant on what type of Tyson Fury is going to come in on the third fight. So if Tyson just comes in laissez-faire, then maybe he has a shot. But if the same Tyson Fury with the same mindset comes in, I don't think there's any adjustment that Deontay can do in order to beat him, because I think it's just going to be the replay of the second match. I think Tyson stylistically is just bad for Deontay. And I think his ring IQ, in addition to that, is just too superior for him, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. I mean, look, Deontay can go in there first round and knock him out. I don't think so. Me personally, I got Tyson Fury winning 2 bouts now. I have him winning the first bout, as majority do, and he clearly left no questions about it on the second match that he won. And Deontay making excuses might be just him trying to satisfy his fan base to be able to sell a third fight. Because personally, am I going to watch a third fight if it happens? Yeah. Do I have any peak interest in watching it, to be honest with you? No. I've watched the guy beat him twice, so I really don't. And I'm going to go to Courtney. Courtney, if a third match occurs, if there is a rematch, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think would be the outcome? Bueller?
As far as, yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, perfect, loud and clear.
All right, cool. Yeah, as far as the third match, goes, I think, ultimately, the third match is happening because, going into this fight, we already knew this was going to be a trilogy. We already knew a condition for this rematch to occur was that, a stipulation for the third match was going to have to happen. So I think everybody is saying, there should be a third match. We've already seen Fury beat him twice or whatever. That's a contractual stipulation of this fight. I think everybody needs to calm down. You knew the third fight was coming regardless of the outcome. So, also, as far as in terms of Fury and AJ, 2 factors in that. AJ has two mandatories who are not going to step aside. Well, obviously, as far as the timing of this goes, Pulev, he's going to fight him. He's going to fight him in the next few months. And then Usyk, I think Usyk is going to have to be paid an insane amount of money in order to step aside, because I think Usyk and his team particularly have an innate belief that AJ is absolutely right for them, and that he's right for the picking, and they're going to, and they're going to motion to get that belt. So it's going to take a lot of money for them to pay Usyk to step aside. So the thing is, you have Pulev, you have Usyk for AJ. That's two mandatories. Fury has to fight somebody in between that time. Not necessarily he can wait or whatever, but I mean, realistically, he's going to fight somebody. If there's another paycheck available, of course he's going to go in there and cash it. So, with this third fight being signed, it is what it is. Also, from another perspective, Wilder has reigned as the WBC champion for half a decade now. Has made 9-10 defenses of that title. He was a reigning champion who lost for the first time and lost his belt. He deserves a chance to run it back, to get his belt back. I think if anybody, I think if there's ever been a champion that deserves to, to see, and I think, I think as fans, there's the intrigue in that third fight this is where we're going to see what Wilder is left with, as far as mentally, as far as physically, what he's left with after that second fight. That's going to be the biggest intangible. That's going to be the biggest thing that we are left to see with Wilder. Is I'm not getting into the costume and the excuses, because I think that's just such a tired narrative. And and the thing is, fighters make excuses every Saturday. After the losing side, particularly in boxing, the losing side always makes some type of excuse every Saturday or after every major fight. It's just that with Wilder, it's in this meme, in this internet and social media age, it's the response to that has been particularly fierce. But in terms of that, I think the biggest thing to see is that an indicator of his bigger mind state of, is he going to take responsibility for all of his shortcomings and work to at least correct some of those, and course correct, or does Wilder think he is the same dude he's always been, but he just had too much weight on him coming into the ring, and he changes nothing, and he goes in there and he takes the same ass? Because, I mean, if that's his mind state, then he's going to come in there and he's going to take the exact same ass whooping, or maybe even worse. You know what I'm saying? So I think those intangibles, that's the intrigue in the third fight. The intrigue is not what Fury is going to bring to that third fight, because we've seen in both aspects. We've seen in the first fight that he can box masterfully. We've seen in the second fight that he can absolutely take it to Wilder if need be. So we know that Fury has got all bases covered. The third fight, that's where we see, all right, how much can Wilder overcome? So, as far as personally how I see it as an assessment, as a result, anybody who's seen me on the boards in the groups and whatnot has seen my tagline. I'm calling it #Wilder and 9 in a rematch. And this is why I'm saying, I'm not just fanboying it up. I think a lot of people think I'm still on Bomb Squad, and I still am. With Wilder, I was riding for him when he was collecting scalps. I'm gonna ride for him when after he got his ass whooped, because that's the type of fan I am. But this is why I'm calling Wilder and 9 in the trilogy in the third match. I think from what we've seen, Wilder is faced with an insurmountable challenge. He is in with a dude who is bigger than he is. He is in with a dude who is faster than he is. He is in with a guy who is more powerful than he is. He is with a guy who is smarter than he is as far as ring IQ. That's not only a trifecta, that's a freaking quad. And the thing is too, is if you look at how big Fury came in as. I think that was that was a big intangible. Everybody was just like, how is Fury going to be effective if he's if he put in 16 more pounds in the first fight because he was big in that first fight? No, Fury came in there looking like a RoboCop. He was freaking solid. Ruiz was flabby with it when he came in against AJ. Tyson Fury looked like a RoboCop. The dude, Tyson Fury is never going to be a body beautiful. He's never going to be ripped up or whatnot. But we've seen time and time again that body type, those guys who come in ripped up and just jacked, they don't do well. They gas easily. That muscle, oxygen cannot feed it like it needs to. Fury has the perfect body composition to do what he does. And he came in and he carried that weight really well. Wilder, on the other hand, he came in heavier. I think he came in the 231 or in the 230s as opposed to the first fight where he came in like 219, 217, something like that. Wilder was the one who came in too heavy.
Right.
And we usually see Wilder come in. We usually see Wilder come in ripped. On Saturday night, we saw him come in jacked. And and that was not a good look. Wilder, that muscle mass and that weight, that extra weight that he was carrying in, that's why he was gassed. That's why his shot resistance wasn't what it could be, because that oxygen was not able to feed that muscular mound. That build that he came in there with. So I think more than the costume that's being talked about, I think that was I think that was one of the major malfunctions or miscalculations that Wilder had, is in putting all that weight in. I think Wilder King was the one who came in way too heavy. But as far as the third fight, like I said, what Wilder is facing is damn near insurmountable, but I'm still calling Wilder a 9. And I'm going to call it because I think Wilder, if he goes back to the drawing boards like he's supposed to, he's not, he's not going to. Wilder is what he is. Wilder is not going to learn to be a boxer a better boxer or a boxer period within the course of the next 6 months or however long it takes for them to exact this rematch.
Not at 35.
I think what Wilder is. Yeah, I think what Wilder is going to do is either him, Dees, possibly even Breland are going to get back to the lab and rework it, or Wilder's going to bring somebody else in, and they're going to come to the conclusion that all they have to do is come up with one or two good ideas to how they can get in there and deliver the right hand. Because that's what Fury did to him. He's completely nullified the right hand, and he didn't do it by boxing. He just went in there and hurt him to where Wilder was a wounded animal, and he couldn't. And he was just too hurt. He was too fucked up in there to deliver that right hand. So I think the adjustment that Wilder is going to have to make in order to win the third fight is A, avoid getting hurt in that fashion, but B, he has to find a way to get in there and be able to creep to where he could deliver that right hand, because it wasn't happening in the last fight. It was telegraphed. Everybody saw it coming from a mile away. It wasn't. And the thing about Fury is he senses those punches probably better than anybody else in the game right now. They have to find a way to stealth that right hand in there, and I don't think that's impossible, but that is a very tall order. So I think that's Wilder's way forward, and I think if he can do it, he's going to go in there. He's going to shock the world. This is going to be probably, the second greatest comeback of this era, and Wilder's going to take him in 9.
Keep your hopes up. I have somebody on the line that will disagree with you. So we have a caller, Julio.
Oh shit!
Julio, who's been waiting for a long time to say something back. So I'm going to redirect Courtney's comments to Julio. Julio, what's going on? I know you've been waiting for a while, so you got the mic. Go ahead.
Nah, we're limited for time here. I respect everybody's opinions. We can save the trolling and the little whatever for the board. I really like to have a deep conversation here because I like everything everybody was, saying. I think Courtney and Michael, I'll give them the MVP awards in the conversation. I like what Tommy has said and Aaron, but I really like what Michael and Courtney mentioned. Courtney more recently with the weight. I think the mass was the number one issue outside of Tyson Fury's game plan. That was Wilder's kryptonite, basically. I'm not going to sit here and close the door on the Bomb Squad era, because what stood out to me, I forgot who said this, that it might have been Michael, that it was, maybe one-sided fight, but I thought it was a great fight because even in defeat, even though I'm disappointed in Wilder, what he said afterwards, the day following with the costume thing, but it's whatever. I liked his heart. He showed a lot of heart. I respected that. I was legitimately concerned for him. I can joke around and troll or whatever. I think he's a great story for boxing. He fought for his daughter. He's an overachiever. I think, Michael, you said this maybe in IG and your own personal page, because I do follow you. I think you call Cristiano Ronaldo an overachiever. I would never be offended at that, even though I hate Juventus. I'm an Inter Milan fan for you soccer fans. They played in an empty stadium today due to the coronavirus situation. But anyway, point is that would be giving a compliment to Wilder, because when he can get the jab going, which he did not, he can be a problem. He tried in the first fight using jab, and Tyson Fury did an amazing job of nullifying that. And then eventually there was a couple of times where he caught him, and it was a power. So it's going to be very interesting. I can't sit here and say Wilder's going to win, because I don't know who his trainer is going to be. On paper, we've seen it already. Tyson Fury has defeated him, so of course he has the edge. But kudos to anybody who thinks and supports Wilder, because if you're a true fan, you're going to support him no matter what. But that's the question we should beg ourselves, and I beg you, I beg, the public out there, whether they're in our group or if they're not, they should be in our group, is who is a legitimate option for a trainer if it's not Breland after him and Wilder get over the little soap opera episode? Because Courtney mentioned it's a possibility, but who legitimately will be a trainer? Who could you see with Deontay Wilder to help him get out of this little look?
That's a great question.
Bowback.
Legitimate question.
Bowback.
Yeah, that's a great question. Legitimate question. There's a couple of potentials out there, but I don't think at this late in the game, I don't think Deontay is going to get rid of the guys that I believe are really responsible for the success in him overachieving to this point. I believe that human beings got limitations, and he realizes he has his limitations. If you analyze his last 4 fights, which are 2 against Tyson and 2 against Luis Ortiz, he's lost majority of the rounds against both those fighters in those 4 fights. So that's a reflection on what they're doing in camp, but I think that they understand there's limitations there. There's not much that they could do. They really rely, and Andre Ward is on record saying what he has said, which is, when you are a one-trick pony, you're going to come to a point where that trick no longer is going to work for you. So it's, again, he might have hit his ceiling against guys like that. And again, this is going to spark controversy, what I'm about to say. But I think that Tyson Fury might have opened up the blueprint on how you beat him. There are guys out there in the top 5, 6 in the heavyweight division that I believe that could beat Deontay right now, based on not just based on that performance, based on the performance already.
I gotta disagree with you, because not most of the heavyweights are not Tyson Fury, so it's not like he set up a blueprint for everyone else when not everyone else is Tyson Fury. So I gotta disagree with you there.
You're right, but here's the thing. But can you name 2 or 3 other heavyweight guys right now that are pressure fighters that are – look, Tyson Fury is not known for power. Let's be honest right now. He's not.
True.
He's not. We can name 2 or 3 other heavyweight boxers right now that are very
Ruiz has the same skill set, arguably, as Tyson Fury, but Wilder would box Ruiz.
We could argue that he's got more power.
Well, I'll say this. I'm going to add to what Michael was saying, too. I mean, I think I'm glad you mentioned the Ortiz fight because, granted, I had to watch it and replay it and watch it live, or might caught the end of it, the tail end of it, literally when he knocked him out with, an overhand punch with the right, of course. Legitimately, people were saying that Ortiz was beating him. So it is a combination of some things that Breland and company did wrong in the corner. Even Andre Ward was saying, why are they not doing this? Why are they not doing that? And it made them look very amateurish. You could almost compare it to Tyson's corner in the fight against Buster Douglas, which obviously was a bigger upset because that was a true upset. With that being said, again, it goes back to Deontay. It's a combination of his corner a little bit to some degree, but at the end, it's, some shortcomings in game plan. He has potential to be a better boxer. I mean, he was an Olympian, right? I mean, granted, he started a little bit late. So at the end of the day, I would like to see him bounce back. It's going to be interesting. Who does he fight next? And again, as we've mentioned in this conversation briefly, who's going to be in his corner? But, I'll leave it to you guys, whoever wants to respond to that or add to whatever Michael was saying.
Correct. And I'm going to say this. Abel Sanchez once said, I think after the last fight that he trained Triple G, or maybe against, I don't remember if his last fight with Triple G in his corner was Canelo's second fight, or if there was another one after. Yeah. He said it. He's like, look, we sometimes go preparing for a specific game plan, but ultimately it is up to the fighter to execute in the ring. If the fighter can't execute in the ring, or he can't make certain adjustments in the ring, then it doesn't matter what you train for. It's going to be tough. And this is where ring IQ and limitations come into play. And this is where I think Tyson Fury just has Deontay just outmatched, in my personal opinion. But that could change. Look, he still has the number one gift in boxing that can erase all mistakes. In you can lose 10 rounds and it's the 11th round and all mistakes are forgotten, because he ultimately has enough power in his right hand to knock anybody out, whether it's Tyson Fury or anybody in boxing. That's reality. So it's more on Tyson Fury as far as what he's going to execute, more so than Deontay, in my opinion. I said this before, but I'm going to redirect to, I know, Courtney, you have something to say, obviously. And then Tommy, let's go to Tommy first. Tommy, I know you haven't said anything in a while. Tommy, what's your opinion on the matter?
I think that I think right now is a little bit too early to try to assess what we may see happen in a third fight between them two, because what are we left with right now? We're left with the remembering of this ass whooping and the beating and all of that. I mean, it's too early. We need to see how Wilder rebounds. We need to see what he's actually looking like while he's trying to train. Just as we're talking about his corner, all of these things have to come into play. So, before we really can find out what's going to happen, because we know what Tyson Fury is going to bring. He's going to bring a great game plan. He's going to bring his mind tricks, and he's going to pull out what he needs to do. But this is all about what Wilder does after this. This is the first time we've seen him lose. So we don't know how he's going to rebound from this, and that's what we need to see. Now, all we got, I mean, like you said, Gomes, all we got to see is an actual jab be used. Fuck the footwork. Like, I mean, he needs it, but it may be too late for the footwork. So use the damn jab. Learn how to go to the body. I mean, we even saw videos of him, trying to imitate, the Tyson, step to the side and hook to the body. Like it looked just brutal watching it. And he didn't even try any of it in the ring. Like, so what was that all for? So, what is he going to be doing coming into that fight, pending that fight happens soon, because he did say that he's supposed to be exercising, that clause immediately, pretty much. So we'll see what happens there. But I just think it's too early for that. If he doesn't develop that jab and body work, it's a wrap again. And I'm gonna still root for the dude. I'm still Bomb Squad as well. But if I don't see something, it's gonna be ugly once again, man. I don't see a whole lot changing, unless he does actually. I mean, he couldn't even figure out a way to throw the right. So, if you can't figure out a way to throw the right, you can't throw your jab. You're not going to the body. It is going to be the same result. Something has to change, and something big has to change.
You made a valid point. He's got obviously the right to execute, or rather to exercise a third fight. Can anyone confirm whether or not he has? Because if ultimately he knows he's going to, What's taken him this long already? I mean, today's Thursday.
There's already been reports that he has, and that's where I believe the step aside came about in the next day or so after that. So I mean, there's been a couple of reports out there that I've seen that said that he's absolutely looking to do that, because I'm sure he knew that Hearn was about to try to run with it like he's doing right now.
Yeah.
Bob Arum has already said they're pretty much making all they're basically all paths are leading towards a third fight. So I mean, I think if Bob Arum is saying that, I think it's pretty much a wrap. I think has Wilder signed the paperwork for the third fight, or the actual documentation that's going to put the rematch clause into play. I don't know about that. I don't know about all the legal proceedings, but I think as far as the statements from Wilder himself and Bob Arum concerning the matter, I think it's pretty much a go.
Let me ask you this, Courtney. And I want your honest opinion. As a boxing fan,
you're always going to get it though. What if you not got?
But I want two perspectives. As a boxing promoter and as the boxer, do you think that because there's an opportunity there that Tyson Fury could give Deontay step aside money? And look, if there's enough money in that in the Tyson Fury versus AJ fight to give Usyk and Deontay money to step aside. We can all agree on that. That's the biggest heavyweight fight as far as revenue to be made right now. Do you think that it would be in Deontay's favor or benefit to be able to buy more time to fight Tyson for all the straps, because there's a good chance that Tyson Fury wins against AJ? What would you do if you're Deontay and his corner at this point?
Well, I mean, Wilder's in disbelief and denial right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? If Wilder's mind state and the competitor and that he is, the champion that he's been, that's in his mind. He can go fight Fury right now in the parking lot to get his belt back. You know what I'm saying? That's and that's the thing. That's why there's such a short window in order for fighters to invoke a rematch clause. You know what I'm saying? Because they're trying to get you within that first 30 days before reality sets in on the situation. And, you know what I'm saying, you're either going to do it or you're not. So, I mean, I think Wilder just, you know what I'm saying, from him waking up the next day and not realizing he's not the champion anymore, he's gonna invoke that rematch clause. I mean, once it's signed, once it's invoked, it doesn't, you know what I'm saying, you don't give that back. So, you know what I'm saying, like that's the big question. That's the big intangible, is just like, hey, has it already been signed? What mechanisms have been put in place already to invoke this rematch clause? As far as Eddie Hearn saying it's going to be, if Fury wins, it's going to be a 5-minute conversation with Bob Arum in Top Rank. You know what I'm saying? We'll throw in for the step aside money, yada yada yada, blah blah blah. Listen, just because of the timing of it, he's already got for sure. AJ's next fight is going to be against Pulev. Like that's, you know what I'm saying, that's going to be for sure his next fight. As far as Usyk, like I said, I think Usyk would step aside, but I think it's going to take a lot of money for Usyk to step aside. As far as Wilder, I don't know. I don't know if there's enough step aside money for Wilder to take. And the thing is, the amount of money that would take, I don't see why Fury would actually pay Wilder that much money to step aside when he's already beat his ass in this fashion. You know what I'm saying? If I'm Tyson Fury, I'm not paying you to step aside when I can get paid to beat you up again.
I mean, valid points. That's true. I just think that there's history to be made because, there's two big fights for AJ coming up. There's history
to be made.
There's losable fights for him.
It doesn't have to get made next. That's where we as boxing fans, that's where our desire for instant gratification does not pair well with the business realities of boxing. I get it. There's a lot of people out there now. They want this to automatically transition to Fury versus AJ at Wembley Stadium for all the belts And you know what I'm saying? Because that's the money, that's the bag. That's the biggest fight. That's the biggest fight in boxing now.
But and you're right about that.
Yup.
But the thing is too is, you know what I'm saying? Does that fight have the potential to marinate and simmer more? Yes, it does. But that's also it's a double-edged sword, because that fight can marinate more. That fight can sizzle more. People can get hungrier for that fight, especially in the United States. In Britain, it's ready to go right now. In the States, it can be on the grill for another few more minutes. But that's the other end of that sword, is that timing is mad dangerous. It's mad dangerous, because I'm telling you, I cannot emphasize this enough. AJ has a very dangerous proposition if he fights Usyk before Fury. That is a very dangerous proposition. Fury getting back into the ring with Wilder is not as dangerous of a proposition, but there is plausible risk associated with that shit, because all Wilder has to do is fucking land that right hand. So it's, you know what I'm saying, it's a lot of things in between. As far it's all going to depend on if the promotional entities, the networks, can pony up that amount of it, because that's going to take the step aside money that they pay out alone. It's going to be insane. And that's going to be an insane amount. You know what I'm saying? Even for Wilder, that's going to be an insane amount of money to have Wilder step aside. But you know what I'm saying? If they can pony it up, is Wilder and our Usyk going to be willing, as prideful champions themselves, to accept that position, to step around and let two other men be in their spot? That's what it's going to come down to.
I think that the reason why the fight against AJ is marinating and people want it right now is because the second fight between Tyson Fury and Deontay was more for Deontay to right his wrong from the first fight, because most people do believe that Deontay lost the first fight. So, and you're right, Usyk poses a problem for everybody, including Tyson, including Deontay, and obviously against AJ. He's a problem for everybody. The only problem I see with Usyk is he, because he's only had one fight yet in heavyweight, is he going to be able to adapt to the heavyweight division? It didn't look like that in the first fight that he had thus yet. Then he had the injury. So that's going to be, I mean, time will tell whether or not that's going to be a different scenario or not. But moving on forward, let's talk about the resurgence of the heavyweight division. It's a topic that, Courtney, you actually posted up the other day on the Facebook group. There was tons and tons of outpour and debate, discussions, arguments, whatever you want to call it. So the question was, which fight brought the resurgence of the heavyweight division? Was it the fight between Wilder and Stavern in 2015? Was it AJ defeating Vladimir Klitschko? Or was it Tyson Fury defeating Vladimir Klitschko in November of 2015 to become the lineal heavyweight champion? So I'm going to start this off with Aaron. Aaron, what are your thoughts based on that question? What do you feel was the fight that actually caused the resurgence?
I mean, when I read the poll question a week ago, the one that Courtney posted up, I read it verbatim. So if we're talking about what planted its seeds for the resurgence, I still go with Tyson Fury being the lineal champion over Klitschko, because I think that was a seed that it in my opinion it signaled a new dawn, a new era of a new breed of new faces in the heavyweight division. I think that just signaled everything else, because that fight obviously it paved the way for Anthony Joshua as well to get his piece of Vladimir, and although the Tyson Fury, although the Wilder beating Stavern happened earlier that year, I felt that not everyone was all in at that point with Wilder when he won that WBC championship. That's just my feeling on it. I may be wrong, but that was my takeaway. So yeah, I think Fury beating Klitschko. Not so much he beat him, but it was more of a from the tactical side of things. He broke him down mentally, as opposed to just beating him down. So I think that event, in my opinion, opened the curtain for the heavyweight division in this new era.
Do we still have Julio on? Julio, are you still on, bud?
Yeah, I'm still here. Let me know if you need me to. Could ask me a question.
Chime in on that question since you're on.
Repeat it one more time if you can.
Which one of those three fights was the cause of the resurgence of the heavyweight division? Was it the fight in which Tyson Fury beat?
I remember the poll now. I answered this. To me, thank you for reminding me. I remember because I answered this question. There was a poll in the group. To me, it was definitely Joshua beating Klitschko, and that's because he dethroned the guy that was kind of leaving the division kind of stagnant for a long time. It's not all his fault because if there was like a competition, that's the era that he was in. But again, Klitschko was a fighting champion. I happened to watch a fight of his one time live. He actually was fighting Brian Jennings, I believe he's out of Philadelphia.
Yes,
I think on that 200 card, Charles Martin was on it also as well. I recall. I think it was a Madison Square Garden. I mean, it was a safe bout for Klitschko. It was a 1-2 clinch, 1-2 movement here. So his style wasn't really, he wasn't taking any risks because he wasn't fighting anybody. And then when he finally fought somebody who brought it to him, you got the result that you got, which was Anthony Joshua defeating him. But again, Klitschko got him hurt and he knocked him down. But AJ, being a little bit younger, more hungry, pulled out the victory. And that might have been Fight of the Year candidate, at least for that particular year that I can remember. So I think that definitely got everybody's attention in the heavyweight division because the king got the throne.
Yeah, and I also answered that question with the same answer, which was AJ defeating Klitschko, just because I felt that was the passing of the torch in front of a sold-out arena, and what he had to overcome in the ring with him being knocked down, I think round 5 or 6, coming back up, showing his grit and fortitude, and ultimately knocking Vladimir out. Courtney, I know your answer was definitely different, probably different than anybody else's in this panel. So go tell us who which fight was that you thought was the resurgence and why.
I think the resurgence was definitely Wilder beating Stavern and becoming the WBC champion. I think that was the resurgence because it was a familiar name for American fight fans and for fans that watch boxing on who were watching boxing on Showtime and HBO because those were the premier outlets at the time. But I think that's what did it. I think Deontay Wilder became the most plausible name in heavyweight boxing, not who wasn't a Klitschko. I mean, people had an idea who Fury was, because people don't know Fury had actually fought on the American network television, like daytime network television, before Wilder, before Wilder had won the championship. He knocked down Steve Cunningham in the middle of the afternoon on NBC on a fight on a card that was didn't really get much hype, but that I think it was main events. Kathy Duva, the promotion, and I think Kovalev was also on that card. So Fury had actually had some mainstream American exposure. So it's not people knew who he was. People knew that he was possibly coming. He didn't look great against Cunningham in that fight, but he was still very young, still very raw. But I think Wilder beating Stavern and Wilder becoming WBC champion, I think, and especially since that was the belt that Vitali had held for such a long time and so dominantly, I think people had begun to see a part in the clouds. If you look at the heavyweight division and basically how I wouldn't necessarily say it was dark and gray and drab, but it was the heavyweight division under the dominance of the Klitschkos. It was there were Americans who I think honestly believed that heavyweight boxing wasn't contended anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like it had come to a point where if you wanted to see a Klitschko fight, those fights were, you either had to go on YouTube like 2 or 3 days after the fight and watch it in German, or occasionally, depending on who the opponent was and how long the fight lasted, ESPN would tape delay it and put it on way late, like after the last West Coast college football game. And, you know what I'm saying? So if you live on the East Coast, that's late. You know what I'm saying? But that, like, it was very obscure. It was, you know what I'm saying? It was very obscure coverage of the Klitschkos. And if you were, you know what I'm saying? If you were checking for the Klitschkos on ESPN, still willing to stay up late on either watch ESPN or scour YouTube to look for their fights, like you were, you know what I'm saying? You were a boxing head. You know what I'm saying? You were a degenerate. But I mean, most people in the mainstream, as far as American fan recognition, they were content to just say, hey, it's two dudes in Europe who they got that. We're watching other shit. And, you know, as we all know, as the heavyweight division goes, so goes the fandom in boxing. So I think the fact that American fans particularly were not invested in the heavyweight division, that was a very low point for boxing's viewability and credibility as a whole. I think when Wilder emerged and entered that, and people were saying, hey, here's an exciting guy who has this insane knockout percentage, has this very big personality, and, you know what I'm saying, has got all these people, you know what I'm saying, is basically got all these people roped in with this big, long, extended bomb squad. You know what I'm saying, this guy, he can shake things up. I think that's the moment when people started to contemplate what could be and who else was out there within the heavyweight division. And, you know what I'm saying, so I think that's what sparked the resurgence. I think a lot of people look at a resurgence as, you know, as something that's got to be a big bang, of, you know what I'm saying, an insanely noticeable moment. I think with the resurgence of heavyweight boxing, it was simpler than that. It was, you know what I'm saying, it was a spark, it was a blurb. And that was when Wilder beat Stavern to win the WBC championship in Vegas. And I think that's when that moment, that's people who started thinking, what's next? Oh man, you know what I'm saying, what does Wilder versus Klitschko matchup perhaps look like? You know what I'm saying? So I think that's what sparked it. I know there's a lot of mention of the AJ and the Fury, the AJ versus Klitschko fight that went down, and I think that's the moment of the resurgence that got everybody hyped. I think that was the exciting. I think that was the high point of the resurgence. But I think by the time that it went down, the resurgence had already started.
Good, valid points. Just got to mention that there was a question in the group. Let me read it really quick. So somebody asked and Tommy, I'm going to let you answer this question. If Wilder beats Fury, is there a fourth match? And if he doesn't, is Fury versus Joshua the biggest fight this decade?
If he beats him,
will there be a fourth?
There could be a possibility, but I don't think that there would need to be a fourth. I mean, it depends on what fashion he beats him. Now, if he actually knocks him out, yeah, maybe we see a fourth one, but I don't see us continuing to put off, Fury and Joshua as well. If that's still a tight fight and Fury does not get knocked out, I could still see him fighting Joshua after losing that fight, and that still being a very big fight in the UK. But if he wins or if Fury wins, then it's absolutely I wouldn't say the biggest fight of this decade, but it's going to be up there. It's going to for damn sure be up there. Will it be the biggest fight in the heavyweight division in several years? Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean that all depends on how Wilder wins. If he wins, if he goes bomb squad, then we got something.
So let me ask you this: what fight? If let's say Fury fights Joshua, what other fight do you think? And let's say Fury's undefeated still. Joshua obviously still has only that one loss in which he avenged. Let's say they fight each other. What other fight do you think that happened from 2010 till now that potentially you can make an argument, a strong argument, that was bigger than this one?
I mean, period?
Yeah.
I mean, money wise, the generation of it. I think that, we could still be talking, Maypac. We could still be talking that as far as one of the biggest ever, as far as in this
heavyweight, just heavyweight.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not saying heavyweight. Now if it in heavyweight, absolutely. I absolutely think that would be the biggest fight. But just out of any fight, just biggest fight of this decade. I don't think that I would say that, but it would be absolutely up there with the biggest fights any division. But heavyweight, without a doubt.
All right, good to know. So really quick, I just want to see if there's any other questions. Aaron, I don't know if you're looking at the questions right now or not. I want to make sure that anybody who asked a question that we answered it.
Yeah, we're good on the questions.
Yeah. So, Courtney, I'm going to redirect back to you after. I'm going to make a statement. I want to redirect back to you. I know you mentioned that the resurgence of the heavyweight division you feel solely was responsible when Wilder defeated Stiverne in 2015, which for anybody listening out there was two fights, right? There was two fights against Stiverne. The first fight, if I'm not mistaken, was a 12-round fight. Am I correct by saying that?
Yes.
All right. What exactly? I mean, Deontay has been known for literally beating everybody up and knocking everybody down. Stiverne was the first guy that he did not knock down, which he later on avenged and knocked him out on the second fight. What do you think that there is a potential resurgence in terms of the heavyweight division for a guy who went all 12 rounds with a guy that perhaps he should have knocked out? I mean, I'm just trying to see, why do you feel strongly about the resurgence there versus, let's say, Tyson Fury beating Klitschko, or even AJ, beating Klitschko? Like, what significance do you think was there? Because I don't, when I look at resurgence, or I think resurgence, I think about getting excited again on the heavyweight division. Watching that fight, which I did live on TV, nothing excited me. I know, and obviously Deontay won the WC belt, but it didn't excite me yet. It didn't excite me because he didn't knock him out, and that's what he was known for.
I mean, I think that's where we're going to have a difference of viewpoint on it. Is that you think you said your view of resurgence is being excited about something. I think a resurgence is, in my definition of it, is interest. People, people who are looking at something who had not necessarily hadn't looked at it before, or looking at it in a different way. Or in terms of, this applies to the heavyweight division, being just willing to tune in and watch, watch the heavyweights again. And so that's my definition of the resurgence. I mean, as far as Wilder, as I remember it, Stiverne was up to his point. Stiverne had only lost once. So Stiverne was generally, regarded as very, was a tough guy. He was, a lot of publications, a lot of pundits had him as a top 10 heavyweight, or near the top of the top 10 at heavyweight. Solid guy, had never been stopped before. So I think that was a big question going into that fight was, this Wilder going to stop this guy who is, a legit cookie, who's never been stopped before. So, and a guy who, Stiverne also, he had knockout power. He was good. He was legit. He was viewed as a legit heavyweight. So I think that in that fight, people were excited. People saw that as a resurgence because that was, that was Wilder. Basically, he fought all the way. He fought all the way to that level, and he didn't fall on his face. He fought. He knocked out. He had all these guys that he knocked out up to that point, and then when he got into a guy who was seen as a legit heavyweight test for him, he passed it. Because if you look back in the chatter, like a lot of people, I wouldn't say a lot, but there was a few people out there who who said Stavern was going to give him hell. There was a few people out there that said Stavern was going to outbox him. There was a few people out there who were saying that, Wilder was possibly going to fold when he got in there with a guy who he couldn't, so who wasn't going to go down and was going to force him to go around. There was a lot of unanswered questions about Wilder up to that point that he did answer. There was a famous point in that fight afterwards where they put the camera on Dees. Dees is looking at the camera and he's hysterical. He's screaming, who they say couldn't go 12 rounds, who they say couldn't box, who they say couldn't defend. And there was like Wilder. And like he put all that together and he became a champion. So I think it wasn't a knockout, no, it wasn't a devastating or resounding performance, but I mean it was the performance that made Wilder a champion. And that when he became champion, that put his name right up there with the other champion in the division, Vladimir Klitschko.
Look, and you might be right. It would be good if we can analyze the fight after that, which I think was Eric Molina, if I'm not mistaken, and just kind of go over the numbers as far as attendance and see what was there. You make some valid points for sure, Tommy. I don't know.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Hold on. I don't want to. I want to mention one more thing too that I mentioned on the boards too. Is the thing is as far as interest in the heavyweight division. After Deontay Wilder won that belt, people started looking at Vladimir Klitschko again, because the natural question of that was like, what's it going to look like if Wilder and Klitschko get together and unify all the belts? So I think inherently, the public, particularly people who were following Wilder, it sparked them. They had an interest in who this Vladimir Klitschko guy really was. And because of that, then, as I mentioned before, the ways that you viewed Klitschko fights were either, on ESPN really late, on tape delay, or going on YouTube. Then Klitschko's fights, they started appearing on Showtime. While Julio just said earlier that the fight with Klitschko against Bryant Jennings was at Madison Square Garden, and it was sold out. So you have a scenario where after Wilder, he becomes a champion. Klitschko, he starts getting mainstream recognition again, or there's people in the mainstream or American fight fans who start looking across the pond to explore who this guy is. HBO starts putting his fights on in the afternoon. So that they air live. Klitschko gets an invite to come to the Garden. And it fills it up. So there's people there. In New York, Klitschko already had an apparently big fan base built in because there's a substantial Ukrainian and Eastern European population that came out. That's but right. When a fighter is fighting on American soil in a big arena like Madison Square Garden and filling it up, that gets people stand up and they pay attention to that. And I don't think Klitschko would have got back to that level of recognition and that level of interest if it hadn't been Wilder doing what he did before that.
Courtney, those are great points. So I'm gonna let Tommy just answer the question. Tommy, I'm gonna let you answer the question as far as the resurgence, and then we're gonna move on really quick to another topic regarding the pay-per-views, which I read today, which would be interesting. So Tommy, go ahead. Which fight did you think was the resurgence?
So for me, the resurgence, I'm going with AJ defeating Klitschko. That shit had memes going with what I'm saying, the knockouts, the knockout and the knockdown, the action that was in that fight. I mean, the Klitschko's neck being like super extended from that uppercut that he caught, and you look like Ring King on Nintendo flying about the ring. Man, come on. I think that was one thing that really, got things going for the heavyweight division again. All three of these, have super valid points to why they could have been, a resurgence in other people's eyes. Courtney made some great points about, the Tyson, almost kind of the Tyson effect of, Wilder coming and bringing what he brought back to the game, that fear that, there was somebody that was coming to just completely demolish through the division. So that, all of that is great points. But I just feel like, the Klitschko's ran it for a very long time, and it got pretty boring, and that's where I give that the nod over something like the Fury fight, because yes, Fury did win, in a very technical manner, but what is the heavyweight division known for? The heavyweight division is known for some bodies hitting the floor, somebody getting knocked the fuck out. And that's what that fight brought. Both guys got knocked down. And there was some extreme knockdowns, and so it was a brawl, and it was against two guys that were, coming into his own, to being what he is now, and what we still see, and the credit that we've still continued to give, Anthony Joshua for what he can do, and everything that Klitschko did before. So I feel that was the one for me.
Great. I'm going to redirect really quick to Aaron. Aaron, he wants to add something onto this topic. Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah, about this question, about this segment. Although I stated my case for Tyson Fury, defeating Klitschko as the initiator of this resurgence, I also see the other viewpoint of Courtney. Him viewing Wilder as Wilder beating Stavern in the first fight as another resurgence point, if you could call it that. But I would have to strongly disagree with the fight between AJ and Klitschko, because that fight happened on the heavyweight division's upward trend as far as attention, because at that point the other stars in the heavyweight division were already established. Everyone knew their place already. I think at that point in 2017, all eyes were on the heavyweight division, fairly so. So I just think that fight, AJ versus Klitschko, that was just an added bonus to what was already a hot heavyweight division. That's all I wanted to say.
Good points. I have to disagree, but I'll do that at another time, because we want to move on and get to the Mikey Garcia versus Jessie Vargas. Right before we do that, 30 seconds on this topic, everybody. I'm going to go to Tommy. Tommy, reports came in today from several sites that reportedly Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, they did about 750 to 850 pay-per-view buys. Disappointed, or do you think those numbers are great?
Well, I know that they also talked about how many illegal streams were out there for this fight. So I mean, I think that it was good, overall, with the way everything is with the streaming, the pirating, all of that. I think it was good. I think there were a lot of people that were tuned in, and a lot of them were, tuned in together as well. So I think that that's something that, always isn't accounted for. So, that's that. I think it's good.
Courtney. Courtney, you got 30 seconds.
Hey, my bad, guys. My bad. Hey, okay. Hey, I think those numbers are. I think they're not dismal, but they're a little bit low. They're a little bit low. In terms of not necessarily the fan base either of these guys have, but just because of the level of marketing that both ESPN and Fox put into it, I thought because of the basically the marketing and advertising blitz they did for this pay-per-view event was at the level that it was. I thought that was going to pay basically stronger dividends, but I mean, hey, for those numbers, those are great as far as where pay-per-view is right now, and because of where the technology is during like stream and pirate sites. You'll say those numbers are pretty good, but I mean, in terms of just basically how Fox and ESPN attacked this promotion, it's for me, it's just a little on the low side, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely. Aaron, 30 seconds.
The sales, pay-per-view numbers, ESPN Plus subscription buys. I mean, it's nothing more to add. It's just a result of the powerhouse collaboration between Top Rank and Hal Heyman, Bob Arum, Hal Heyman. Those two figureheads working together to make this happen. So, hopefully, this will birth new other similar situations of fights, especially possibly Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence, matchups of that nature. And I'm also hearing, hey, we might get Pacquiao versus Terrence Crawford. That's another matchup maybe that I've been hearing about coming into fruition possibly. So yeah, great results, great sales numbers.
So I'm going to give you my input on this. I think it's actually dismal. I think it was disappointing, and I have to agree with Courtney. It's disappointing for a couple of reasons. They actually spent millions and millions upon dollars marketing this fight. They were all over when the big NASCAR event was out. They were all over it. I watched a bunch of advertising online, on TV. They really went and spent a lot of money. This was a fight that should have easily done $1 million plus, and they didn't get there. And they expected to do $1 million plus. I know that some promoting companies say they expect to do X amount, and when they don't get there, they're really not expecting it. But this is a fight that they really really wholeheartedly thought they were going to get $1 million plus, and they didn't get there. And considering the numbers don't sound too bad, but considering the fact that they spent a lot of money in advertising, and they did a great job marketing the fight, unfortunately, it just fell short. And I think if there is a third fight, you're not even going to see 800 plus. I think you're going to see a lot less than that. I'm not going to say a lot less, but I think that you'll see a lot less in terms of not reaching over 600, 650 for a fight that, I don't think they're going to spend as much money on advertising the third time around. But moving forward, Mikey Garcia versus Jessie Vargas Saturday in Texas. Tommy, you're going to be there, right?
Absolutely, I'm in the building.
So why don't you tell the listeners out there really quick? I know you were at the press conference the other day. Tell them your experience. I know you saw Mikey Garcia. You were within arm's length of Mikey Garcia and Jessie Vargas. Tell the viewers your experience there.
Oh man, it was a great experience. Just getting out there. The boxers, Eddie Hearn, all the trainers. Roman Gonzalez, Joseph Parker, everybody was there. So, and it was a very, smooth and cool environment. All of the boxers were out, just kind of initially just mingling with everybody and, doing interviews on the side. And, once we got in there, I mean, you could really see that, this card, I'll say one thing, this card is going to be an amazing card. I mean, there are a ton of great matches. Obviously we've got the headliner with Mikey Garcia and Jessie Vargas, but then we've got Julio Cesar Martinez and Jay Harris. Brett, he's going to be facing off with him. Cal Yaffe, he's fighting Roman Gonzalez, and that's going to be a banger. They've got some really good respect for each other. And that was one thing that I did gather throughout the press conferences, the respect that they have for one another. But they know that they got to do what they got to do. One of the biggest takeaways that I got to say honestly is, man, seeing and hearing Jessie Vargas talk about this fight and talk about what he's done and what he's looking to show and prove in this fight. Seeing the look in his eyes. He is looking to do some damage. Like he's almost like planning to Spence Garcia or something. Like he's truly looking to bring a nasty fight to this dude. And we all know that Mikey Garcia is extremely smart in the ring. But we've had our talks about, him being at 147 or remaining at 147. He's going to be in for a fight. He's going to be in for a real fight. So, I'm excited to see that. And yeah, I'll be at the weigh-in as well on tomorrow. So we'll be looking forward to some more fireworks.
Hey, Tommy,
Awesome.
I got a quick question for you, Tommy, since you were there. Any of the media guys get a chance to ask Vargas this question or something similar to that effect? That did they ask Jessie Vargas if his thoughts on the fact that Mikey Garcia, this would be his only second fight at welterweight, and that does he plan to take advantage of Mikey's relative inexperience still at welterweight? Any themes of that was brought up there, Tommy?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he's looking to showcase, that difference, that gap as far as the experience of fighting, in that division. So that's something that he's going to be looking to use with his size and how he brings that into the ring and his aggression, and so that's why I said he almost feels like he's trying to really pull a bully move on Mikey in this fight. So yeah, I'm extremely interested to see with the style that Jessie Vargas has compared to Mikey Garcia, how that's going to turn out. Is Mikey gonna be smart enough and be able to be quick enough and move around the ring to keep him at bay and keep that pressure off of him, because Jessie's going to bring it to him.
Those are great points. And I don't know about you guys, but I've been tracking the boxing odds on this fight. I am extremely mind-boggled that Jessie Vargas is that much of an underdog in this fight, considering the fact that Jesse's just a bigger guy, and naturally fits in the welterweight division. Mikey is not. Number two, Mikey's first fight in the welterweight division, he took a beating against Spence, right? We can all agree to that. To the point where his corner said, Mikey, if you don't show us much, we're gonna have to, we're gonna throw in the towel, basically. I'm surprised that it's this lopsided as far as betting odds. Like, you would have to risk $550 to win $100 if you put money on Mikey Garcia. It's insanity. And Jessie Vargas is no slouch. I don't think that Jessie Vargas is as talented and as skillful as Mikey Garcia, but this is boxing, and weight does create an advantage. And we saw that a little bit with Jessie Vargas versus Adrian Broner, where Jessie was really imposing himself on Adrian Broner up until later middle rounds and later rounds, where Jessie was getting a little tired. But I'm very surprised that this is such a lopsided fight, in my opinion. I think it's going to be a lot closer than what people expect. I can't pick the winner of this fight, to be honest with you, because I just don't know what type of Mikey Garcia is going to show up. I need to see if there was any negative effects or adverse effects on Mikey from the Spence fight. Courtney, what are your thoughts on this fight as far as predictions?
For a while, I had this as a 50-50 fight. And you know what? I had it as a 50-50 fight for the same reason. I think a lot of people are favoring Mikey Garcia, and that's just simply name recognition. You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of people are just looking at it as they're looking at what Mikey Garcia has done throughout his career and the guy that he's been, but they're not really looking at the intangibles of this matchup. Because when I started really just pondering the intangibles and how these two in particular match up together in this fight at this weight class at 147, I really have a hard time seeing how anybody can say that Jessie Vargas wouldn't be the favorite guy going into this fight. A lot of people forget Jessie Vargas was originally a Floyd Mayweather a money team fighter. The guy is, I remember watching him at 140, and it took him a while to break out, partly because I think he had the promotional issues. The guy was changing trainers every 5 minutes, but I just remember seeing him at 140 and seeing him when he first broke into 147 and saying, I've never seen a guy with that much turmoil around him as far as managerial problems, promotional issues, outside the ring stuff, saying switching up trainers, be that consistent. You know what I'm saying? So show that many wrinkles, show that many levels. It was almost like Jessie Vargas kind of like thrived on the chaos that was going on around him and stuff. So I think that speaks volumes to who Jessie Vargas is as a fighter. And then when he got his, when he got his moment, the fight against Tim Bradley, was a few seconds away from, from upsetting the apple cart and ending, Tim Bradley's career, or his title reign prematurely. Actually, that was for a vacant belt. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, he came a few seconds away from punching the clock on Tim Bradley. And when he got. Yeah, and the thing is, we all know in boxing, second chances really aren't plentiful. And so when he got one against Saddam Ali, he showed up. He showed up in that moment, and then he did something that he wasn't known for. He showed that wrinkle where his power was there. And I just remember thinking, oh, snap. So, as far as, as far as Jessie Vargas and, and what he's already shown, this is a guy, he is fully acclimated to 147. He's a guy, he started at 147. He started at 140. He went to 147 because he legitimately grew out of 140 and couldn't make it anymore. And then, up to a few months ago, Jessie Vargas was being contemplated or being floated as a potential opponent at 154.
Correct.
For Jaime Munguia. So, this is a guy who's not only legitly acclimated to 147, but is pretty much on his way out of 147. And it's basically making, that extra, making that extra to make basically pushing his body that extra mile, trying to squeeze that little bit more out of it just to be able to stay this way to make this fight, because he wants to be in there with a guy like Mikey Garcia, and also, when people are forgetting that Kell Brook had signed basically like damn near basically signed the Jessie Vargas had signed his portion of the contract to fight Kell Brook
last year. Yeah,
they were just waiting on Kell Brook's signature. Kell Brook was like, Kell Brook went up to and he fought Triple G. And obviously that fight was the bigger fight. That was the bigger recognized fight. That was for obviously for more money, but that was a unification. Kell Brook was the IBF champ. Jessie Vargas was WBO champ. Kell Brook passed on a unification opportunity. With it. And part of it, yes, Triple G was the bigger fight. It was going to pay him more. But honestly, I don't think Kell, for some reason, and I was telling people that and they were laughing at me, but I was saying this, but for some reason, I just had that vibe about Kell Brook that he did not fancy that fight against, Jessie Vargas. Not necessarily he didn't fancy his chances in that fight. It's that I think that he was really looking at that as a very high risk, low reward type of proposition against Jessie Vargas. And I think that's ultimately why he walked on that fight. So, we had a guy, Jessie Vargas, he's got bona fides at 147. As far as Mikey Garcia, we all know Mikey Garcia's resume. We all know his laundry list of accomplishments in the game. But we also all saw his last performance at 147. And mostly he looked that way because Spencer is a special. Errol Spence is a special type of fighter. I think that was a large part of why Mikey Garcia looked as bad as he did in that fight. But also, if we just looked like how how he took the punches, how he responded, just basically how he looked in there physically, Mikey Garcia just completely looked out of place at 147. And basically all the fights I've seen Jessie Vargas at 147, he has looked like he belongs. So, I mean, when I look at those intangibles side by side, that's why I have to overwhelmingly favor Jessie Vargas' chances in this fight, in this matchup.
Good points. And people forget that Jessie Vargas not long ago fought Humberto Soto at a catchweight at 150. And even that fight in 2019, which basically was signed with Kell Brook, which you made a valid point, they were debating whether or not they were making that fight at 147 or at 154. There was a debate going on. Do we do this at 147 or do we do it at 154? So those are some valid points. Aaron, what are your thoughts? What are your predictions?
Honestly, I'm totally 50-50 on this. I know Garcia is viewed as the favorite, but
wait, are you surprised by that much?
Oh, come again?
Are you surprised by how much of a favorite he is?
I mean, how is everyone? Is it a steep favorite or is it a slight favorite? That's where I'm kind of
6-1 odds.
Holy shit! Pardon my French, but I don't see it that heavy as far as odds. To me, I think it's a 50-50 fight, in my opinion, as Courtney said, because one, Mikey Garcia, we haven't seen much of Mikey Garcia in this division. He's coming out of a small sample size, just one opponent in Errol Spence Jr. And other than that, that's it. And Vargas, he's been relatively knee deep in the game at welterweight, so he's comfortable at that weight. So it's just, we'll just have to see. I really don't know. Mikey Garcia, let's see how he could. We've yet to still see if Mikey Garcia could carry over that power from junior welterweight to full-fledged welterweight, and we still have to see how he responds to the pressure that Vargas plans to bring to him, and his added power to that as well. So to me, it's 50-50 at this point.
I got to give the advantage to Jessie. He's proven at 147. He's the much bigger guy. He does have the power. And Courtney absolutely right about, Spence is a special talent, so he can make anybody look bad. But you can clearly tell, just looking at Mikey, he cannot fit in terms of his body. He cannot fit 147. He's not a 147 guy. So I don't know I don't know whose decision it is to keep him at 147, because I can't see. Look, take away Jessie Vargas. Mikey cannot compete with the top 4 guys, top 5 in the welterweight division. So what is the point of keeping a guy like Mikey with his resume, with his name, who's a brand at this moment? Why keep him at 147? So the only play or the only answer to that is the same answer I gave everybody when he fought Spence. It's a money play. He's at the later stages of his career. People forget about that. Mikey Garcia doesn't have many years left to be fighting. And Mikey Garcia took that sabbatical because of that dispute he had with Bob Arum, right? So there's a lot of money that was left on the table. So at this point, I think Mikey's going after money. I don't know what he's making against Jessie, but I'm assuming Jessie made 1.3 million against Soto. I'm assuming that they're both making 7 figures in this fight with no problem. And it's this is now Mikey's first fight under match, under the zone. So I know he's getting paid and rewarded handsomely in this fight, but I just can't see Mikey competing at 147, despite the fact that he's obviously a very talented boxer. We're not saying that, but Mikey has also his limits. Mikey got outclassed. Take away the weight, he got outclassed by Spence. Spence outboxed him in every shape, form, or way you could possibly imagine. And that would go the same way if he fought Bud Crawford, Manny Pacquiao. Look, Manny Pacquiao at 40 beats him. Sean Porter beats him. Danny Garcia beats him. Obviously, I don't know if I said Bud Crawford beats him. Potentially knocks him down. Or maybe not. I mean, Spence didn't knock him down. Maybe Bud doesn't knock him down. But he loses against everybody. I mean, he loses to the top 5 guys. And I can make a case right now, an argument that he could lose potentially against Jessie Vargas. I just don't. I can't see it. Look, he might pull the win. And the other X factor in this, the other intangible is and we spoke about this at the early, stages of this conversation, the episode, is, when you take a beating in a fight, that takes a lot away from you physically and mentally. Is Mikey going to be the same guy in the ring coming into this fight? I don't know. I mean, time will tell. We'll know by Saturday, past midnight, we're going to know. But I have a hard time believing that Mikey's going to be competitive at 147 and that Mikey's going to be able to beat Jessie Vargas. I see this as a 12-round fight, which it could go either way, with me saying I think Jessie Vargas might win, especially if he applies the same pressure that he applied against Adrian Broner. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Let's again, time will tell. Let's see what happens on Saturday. Despite all that, I'm eager. I'm excited to watch it. I'm excited to watch Mikey back in the ring again. I'm excited to watch Jessie Vargas back in the ring again. And shout out to Tommy for covering the fight. Much love and appreciation for you for being there. And that's pretty much it, guys. I think this is it. We're wrapping episode 48. We talked a lot about boxing and everything that's relative right now currently. We had some great debates, and I'm looking forward to the next episode. For all of you guys out there listening, don't forget to obviously sign up. Like us on our Instagram account, the Standing 8 Podcast. Aaron, where else can they find the Standing 8? You can go on our website, thestanding8.com. We're also on what other sites? iTunes, Spreaker, what else?
I'll complete that thought for you, Michael. Yeah, this episode can be found later tonight on our major podcast platforms, which include Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and many others. The full list is on our website, on thestanding8podcast.com. You can see all of the other platforms that we're on, and follow us on Facebook, also on Instagram. We're heavily active on Instagram, so if you want to engage us more frequently, Instagram is where we're at. But yeah, Facebook, Instagram. Find us again: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts. I'm Aaron Sorial, 1/4 of the Standing 8 Podcast crew. I'd like to thank my co-hosts, Michael Gomes, Courtney Tanner. I'm joining us from abroad. And last but not least, Tommy Rush Jr. from Dallas. Thank you to all our followers, supporters. Thank you for riding with us for these past 2 years. This is episode 48, season 3. Till next time, guys. Have a safe night.